Hello, everyone. My name is Marc Rand. I am the managing partner at Community Capital Advisors. The following video is the second video I recorded with Haines, Foundation for Louisiana's Community Investment Fund Manager. In this video, we discuss how philanthropy can support lenders supporting entrepreneurs of color. Check out other videos I've recorded with Rashad for more information on lending to entrepreneurs of color during COVID and specific information about how lenders should think about lending to women of color entrepreneurs and the important role that they play. Also, visit communitycapitaladvisors.us for more great interviews with industry leaders in impact investing. Thanks so much. I'd love to hear from you around, what bright spots do you see in kind of lending to communities of color or banks or whatever? And then I want to talk to you a little bit about what the role philanthropy can play to support, small businesses, especially small businesses owned and operated by communities of color, which again, I think is so critical. As a program director for a very large foundation previously, how do we think about community development? It's one thing to build affordable housing, but actually supporting folks, living there and thriving is a whole nother matter. So sorry for a long-winded question, but what bright spots do you see? And then let's talk about the role of philanthropy.
Yeah, well, I'm encouraged, when you lend that money out to folks in your community, there's this multiplier effect. The entrepreneurs tend to hire people from their community, people they know. And so, the more employment you have, the more opportunities you create, the more they create other opportunities. So, as these businesses grow, they donate money in the community, they hire folks, so all those good things. And I've seen that happen. And bright spots, they're hard to find right now. So I look really, really hard, but one of the things that is encouraging, I've seen more allies kind of sticking up and really understanding not only the power of money, I'm a money guy, you're a money guy, but they're starting to make that connection. And so I feel like there is a way to move this momentum forward and build a better country for everyone.
Yeah. When you were talking a little bit about the bright spots and communities and looking at folks in the neighborhood with a job, or not a job but a business or whatever, I was thinking, I know you're a father, and to see like your father or your mother have a business, that's a very different mindset of growing up versus something else which may not be as pleasant. So
well, that's super true. I grew up in a very low middle class neighborhood in Ohio, and you don't have, but you don't have a ton of so your exposure really drives where you go. So if you see a number of business owners and you see a number of people employed and just doing those things, you're much more likely to see that path, and it makes it real to you. Whereas if you don't have those opportunities, if you see black banks, you see the power of, I remember, when I worked at Liberty and in my days now too, we had a kind of mandatory volunteering thing. So we go to schools and things like that. And there were kids in those schools that had never seen a black man in a suit outside of a court, and that just, and this is, this isn't 1950, this is 2010, that just had never seen a black man in a suit. And or they automatically assume you're an attorney and like a defense attorney. So and I went to a bunch of different schools, and that's sort of what you see. And so just the more exposure you give to these folks, and that's what entrepreneurs do, they create this exposure, and that's
plant that seed. Plant that seed. Yeah, sorry to cut you off. Yeah,
no, absolutely.
Let's go back to the idea of philanthropy. And what do you think philanthropy's foundations, private foundations, banks, foundations, whatever, what do you think they can be doing right now to be more supportive? I mean, it's hard out here for everybody, right?
Yeah.
But you know, let's be honest, the doesn't matter if it's communities of color or not, like the lower you are on the food chain, the more it's going to be difficult, right? So, but what do you think the philanthropy can do, especially given the most recent kind of spotlight on Black Lives Matter? What do you think, what would be helpful?
You know, I think philanthropy plays a big role. You know, I'm newer to the philanthropy world. You know, the last 2 to 3 years, I've you know, worked with a number of different philanthropic organizations. I think that the biggest help they could be is, you know, we spoke earlier about this gap in equity. You know, and we talk about equity has all these different meanings, right? But I'm talking
Right.
equity in a finance, in a financial sense. You know, so like you can add that equity that entrepreneur doesn't have an, you know, a quick aside, I remember working with, you know, a number of other folks and people that I went to college with and things like that, that, you know, when they started their business, you could just literally call your mom, or even there was a story, this guy just called his aunt, and his aunt just had $250,000 just to give him to just get going on his business. And, you know, that's this wealth that's been created in this country over the last couple of centuries that we're missing out on. So some of this philanthropic money could kind of fill that gap to make banks feel more comfortable lending, you know, because, you know, banks, to be fair, you know, they have criteria they have to meet. They have, you know,
Shareholders,
all these other sort of things. So you can make a deal a lot better if you're able to put 5-10% equity into a deal. That you expect to get paid back in some sort of way, possibly. But you know, if you just put the equity out there and get out of the way of some of these entrepreneurs, I think you'd see some amazing results from it. And so I think that's one role philanthropy could play. The other role is just the connection. You know, the outside of money, the biggest thing is, you know, a lot of these entrepreneurs, you know, they have a great idea, have a great work sense, you know, maybe have a great experience, but they may not know an attorney, or may not know an accountant, or may not know suppliers. And so those are the things that make your business viable for a long period of time. So making those connections that these philanthropic organizations have, you know, just, you know, they have out there. So just kind of putting that out there, I think would be really helpful. And I'm speaking more from a finance sense, so in helping the business world. There are a lot of other things I think, you know, along the Black Lives Matter topic that you could help, you know, making some donation grants to criminal justice and, you know, police, all those other sort of things. But on a strictly financial sense, I think adding that equity makes a big difference.
Yeah, I also think too the role that philanthropy can play is along the lines of providing PRIs, or program related investments, at a super low interest rate, and providing some capacity building to operate the fund. So that would be helpful. Guarantees can also be helpful. I've also seen where a lot of foundations provide those cedar deposits as well. So yeah, so I think there's a lot of different tools that philanthropy can play. And for the most part, you know, the world of impact investing, like, yeah, it's there, but I think there's a lot more room for folks to participate in and support. And it's a very different strategy than here's a grant, go away. You know, when you've got a PRI and you've got an investment with either CDFI or, you know, a foundation like FFL or whoever, that's a very different relationship, because you are truly partnering. You want to see Rashad thrive because he owes you $1 million. Right?
Yeah,
so,
no, that's true. That wraparound relationship is extremely important. And with those PRIs, I think the PRIs are vitally important. I would just challenge, you know, the philanthropic world to think about these PRIs as a mix of debt and sort of how you would think of an equity fund. You know, you'd have to really factor in some losses and be really comfortable with that, whether that's through a loan loss reserve that's provided, or just the way that the capital is structured. But if you want, you know, it is going to be inherently a bit more risky lending to some of the folks that we want to, the underserved for folks, just by definition. So, you know, having that in mind, when we create these PRIs, I think is huge. And I've seen some
But
good
what a
strides.
great role. What a great role for philanthropy to take on this risk and support, you know, these communities in different ways.